There are people who you think are your friends, but actually they're not. There are people who you think are your enemies, but actually they're not. Sometimes we think that we know someone, but we really don't know them at all. For example, in the story of Samson, the strongest man in the world according to the Bible, he thought he knew this woman named Delilah, but he didn't know her at all. In fact, she was out to get him. And when I say get him, I mean destroy him, ruin his life. Samson was deceived by this woman named Delilah, but how exactly did she deceive him? You're about to find out. Hey guys, welcome to my channel where we make the stories of the Bible come to life. Now let's go back to the time of Samson. Samson was a judge in Israel, a deliverer who was set aside for such a time as this to save Israel from their enemies, the Philistines. But there was a problem. Samson was attracted to women, beautiful women, and it wasn't just any kind of attraction. It was an uncontrollable attraction. Whenever he saw a woman that he found attractive, he felt compelled to marry her. And most of the time these women were Philistine women. Let me give you an example. In Judges chapter 12, verses 11 to 20, we see that Samson went to Gaza and saw a prostitute and he wanted to marry her. Now, just because she was a prostitute didn't mean that he wasn't serious about wanting to marry her. This is what it says. And Samson went up to Goshen and saw there a prostitute, and his heart was drawn to her. Notice the word drew. That's past tense. It means that it was a compulsion. He didn't choose to go after her. He couldn't help himself. He had to go after her. And then it says this. And he came up and told her, and she conceived from him. Then it came to pass after 3 days that he said to himself, I must go in again and see if my heart has turned to her, or whether I have said rashly. So Samson goes back to see if he still feels the same way about her. And what does he do? He goes into her house. He finds her asleep and takes a javelin and cuts off her 7 forelocks while she's sleeping. Do you realize how dangerous this is? He goes into the house of a woman that he's never met before, probably harboring some ill will against Israel, and he cuts off her 7 forelocks as she's sleeping. But you know what? His heart was appeased. Verse 20 says, Then Samson arose and fled and went away. And that's what always happened. Whenever Samson fell in love with a woman, he would do something crazy and then run away. Now in Judges chapter 13, God tells Samson's mother, You shall conceive and give birth to a son, and the beginning of his labor pains will be very severe for you, for he will be the one who will deliver Israel into the hand of the Philistines. And so when Samson was born, his mother dedicated him to God, promising that if God gave him a son, she would make him a Nazirite. Now you may not know what a Nazirite was, but basically it was a vow that someone made to God where they consecrated themselves totally to God by abstaining from things like wine, cutting their hair, and touching a dead body. Samson was a Nazirite, and one day the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon Samson, and he became a great judge in Israel. He delivered Israel from the hands of the Philistines for 20 years, but he couldn't control himself around women, especially Philistine women. And in Judges chapter 14 verse 1, it says, Then Samson went throughout the land of Israel, and behold, he saw a woman in Timnath of Zebulun whose heart was pleasing to him. And again, notice the word saw, whose heart was drawn to him. It was a compulsion. He couldn't help it. He couldn't choose not to go after her. And so Samson tells his father, Get her for me as a wife. And his father says, Look, isn't a daughter of the Philistines your sister? Won't the Israelites hate that? And Samson says, My heart is set on her. She is my wife. And so Samson's father goes and talks to the woman's father and asks for her hand in marriage, and they agree to the marriage. But unbeknownst to Samson, God was already judging him. It says in verse 18, But the Lord said to Samson, You shall begin to be humbled and fall to an enemy. Moreover, your heart's desire among the women Philistines. And then Samson goes to the woman's house and plays a riddle for her and her 30 men. And the men couldn't solve the riddle, but one of the women finally solved the riddle, and Samson was furious. He told her that he would make a riddle for the 30 men of Gaza, and whoever solves it will be rewarded with 30 tunics and 30 pairs of sandals. But none of them could solve the riddle. And so Samson killed them all. And then Samson went to live with his father. But God told Samson, "You haven't humbled yourself because of your sin. You haven't repented of your sin. You've been stubborn, so I am going to send a more severe trial your way." And right around this time, Samson meets another woman named Delilah. And in Judges chapter 16, it says that the lords of the Philistines went to Delilah and offered her 1,100 pieces of silver, saying, "Entice Samson, and find out what his strength is and where his great might lies. And bind him with fetters of bronze and iron and shackles, and hold him down securely." And Delilah said to them, "All right, I will entice him and find out." And she sat on the doorstep of his gate. When Samson came, she said, "How can you say that you love me when you won't even let me touch you? You're too clean. I want to feel your body. I want to touch you. How can you say that you love me if you won't let me touch you?" And Samson said to her, "It's not a big deal. Come, I'll show you where my power comes from." And he showed her everything. He didn't leave anything out. He told her how he hadn't cut his hair, that he hadn't touched a dead body, and that he hadn't drunk wine. And she said, "Wow, you're so powerful. I can't believe it. You're amazing. But I need to test you just to be sure." And he said, "What do you want to do?" And she said, "You must swear to me by the Lord that you will tell me whatever I ask of you at any time." And he swore to her, and immediately she called for someone and said, "Quick, shave off his hair. Look, it's right here." And while Samson was sleeping, they shaved off his hair and cut off his forelocks. And as soon as his hair was cut off, his strength left him and he became very weak. Then they took him, bound him with chains and shackles, and took him to the king of the Philistines. When Samson woke up, he realized what had happened. He realized that he'd been betrayed, that his own girlfriend had betrayed him. And he began to call out to God, saying, "O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Please, God, strengthen me, I pray, that I may at once be avenged of the Philistines, that I may at once do what is done to me." And when Samson called upon the Lord, his strength returned. And he pulled up the pillar, and he pushed, and he pulled, and he destroyed the temple of Dagon, the Philistines' god. And many, many Philistines died that day. And Samson, even though he killed thousands of Philistines, even though he destroyed their god, he died that day. He pulled down the pillars of the temple and died next to the Philistines. The lesson for us today is that God allows us to be tested. God allowed Samson to be tested by Delilah, not to build up his faith, but to humble him. See, God was trying to humble Samson, but Samson was too proud. He kept thinking that he was stronger than the last time, that he could beat the Philistines again. But no, he was just setting himself up for a greater fall. Don't be like Samson. Be humble. Let God test you, but be humble. Submit yourself under the mighty hand of God so that He can lift you up in due time. Thank you so much for watching. We hope that you enjoyed the video and learned a valuable lesson from it. If you did, please leave us a comment below. We would love to hear what you have to say. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to our channel. We would love to have you join our family. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time on Adventures in Odyssey.